Is Trump about to pull out of New Hampshire? Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, a lot, and I mean a lot to talk about today, but without question, now one of the pivotal issues is the battleground state of New Hampshire. Kamala Harris was in New Hampshire, in fact, Portsmouth, New Hampshire yesterday, delivering a major economic policy speech. And what the Democrats are now claiming, they claimed it straight from the Harris campaign, parroted by much of the media, is that New Hampshire has now been lost to President Trump and the Republicans. This is now the argument Harris's people are now saying. They are pointing to several polls in which Harris is ahead by 6, 7, in one poll, even 8 percentage points. And they are now claiming that Donald Trump has effectively abandoned or given up New Hampshire, that Kamala will take New Hampshire in November. Now, to show you the importance of this story, this is not just a local story, a New England story. As you know, I am Boston's bulldozer, so Boston is the hub not only of Massachusetts, but in many ways of New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Maine, Vermont, of New England. This is a national story because many, many analysts believe that the election could be so razor close that New Hampshire, tiny New Hampshire, with its several electoral college votes, may literally make the difference on November 5th. And so, I know Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, those 6 pivotal battleground states get a ton of attention. But little New Hampshire, with its few electoral votes, and remember, the magic prize, the magic number is 270 electoral college votes. Whoever gets 270 wins the election. Period. Full stop. Popular vote doesn't matter. Nothing else matters except 270 electoral college votes. Now, the Democrats are bragging, saying that Kamala's visit yesterday shows that she's confident that the Granite State is going to go Democrat and go in her direction, and that Trump, they say, is MIA. Now, let me say this right out of the gate. I think it's 100% pure and unadulterated, BS, bullcrap. In fact, the Trump campaign immediately fired a statement saying, where are these people getting these stories? Has fake news run out of material to make up more lies? They have not pulled out of New Hampshire. The staff is there. The campaign infrastructure is there. Trump, in fact, is going to be paying numerous visits to New Hampshire. They haven't kissed away this New Hampshire. This is pure fake news intended to demoralize the Trump supporters in New Hampshire and give Kamala Harris a fake sense of momentum. In other words, it's one big lie. On top of all of this, you just have to drive through New Hampshire. As I did over the weekend, I went up to see my dad in Montreal. He's not doing well. He's battling Parkinson's. Made my way back on Labor Day. Grace, myself, the kids, we made several stops in New Hampshire. Let me tell you what struck me right away. A sea of Trump, Vance signs. I'm talking Trump, Vance signs everywhere. Everywhere. So this notion that somehow New Hampshire is gaga for Kamala is a fiction of the media and a fiction of the Democratic Party and the Harris campaign. Now, moreover, yesterday, Kamala arrived in Portsmouth, and to show you now the con job, the snow job that they're trying to pull on the people and voters of New Hampshire, listen now to this. And I want to give a big hat tip to Kevin. He's the one that sent me the text messages, the pictures, the photos with all of the evidence. And now local media has now picked up on this as well. Kamala Harris yesterday, to show you how weak her campaign is, how there is no grassroots support, how this is all astroturf. This is all fake. That's all this is. Fake from beginning to end. At her so-called major economic policy speech, 12 buses, orange buses, with Yankees logo written on them. All 12 of them with Massachusetts license plates drove into Portsmouth carrying, yes, Massachusetts residents and Massachusetts voters. So here you have Kamala Harris giving a very important address less than a week before the historic debate between her and Donald Trump. And she can't even bring people from New Hampshire. That's how thin her support is. She has to bus them in. And I don't mean one bus or two buses. Minimum 11. Some say as many as 12 buses. I mean, you could see the pictures. Don't take my word for it. There were the Yankee bus line with Massachusetts license plates. And they came in from the south. They came in from Massachusetts. They unloaded all these people. They bus them in. And by the way, she's been doing that in Georgia and in other places all over the country. They're busing them in 3-4 hours away to make it appear that her events are full of people and packed. And then many of these Massachusetts residents were so bored with her speech that they wanted to leave the event early. But they started to panic. Listen to this. Because the buses, for whatever reason, left, and they were told by campaign officials, no, you're going to have to wait at least another half an hour. The buses aren't going to come back for at least another half an hour. And so many of these so-called rally goers and rally attendees began to, pop off. And they're like, this is BS. Are you kidding me? I got to put up with this. You didn't pay me enough to come here and listen to this and waste my whole day. So what we're now watching is an orchestrated campaign to try to bamboozle the people of New Hampshire into thinking that she has this overwhelming grassroots popular support when in fact they've just been caught red-handed, having to bus in Massachusetts residents, and now they're caught lying that New Hampshire and the Granite State suddenly is lost to Donald Trump. It's not lost to Donald Trump. Au contraire, as the French would say. On the contrary, Donald Trump is going to win New Hampshire. And let me tell you why he's going to win New Hampshire. You saw it yesterday in her speech. This woman is crazy. You call that an economic policy speech? She is going to destroy small businesses. Literally, half of all small businesses surveyed in the United States. I want all of you to listen to this. Half of all of the small businesses say that they cannot survive another 4 years of Bidenomics, or now in this case, Kamalanomics. In other words, the policies of the Biden-Harris regime. That if Kamala wins in November, it is the beginning of the end, not just for America, but for small business in this country. It is going to wipe out small businesses, wipe out millions of jobs. Kamala Harris, please, you have to listen to this, all of you. This is her centerpiece of her economic platform, and she reiterated it again, amazingly. She wants Soviet-style price controls, especially on food. She wants unrealized capital gains taxes. She wants to tax unrealized capital gains. You got a 401k and it goes up, say, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, say, over the next couple of years. They're going to tax it, even though you haven't withdrawn anything from it, taken anything from it. You have a home, say it goes up in value. You're going to get a massive 25% tax, and you haven't done anything to your home. She wants $5 trillion in new income taxes. $5 trillion, which will wipe out the middle and working class. This woman will destroy the American economy. She will destroy what's left of the American middle and working class. She will destroy small business, and she will destroy the American dream. And you're trying to tell me that New Hampshire wants Kamalanomics? That they want to commit economic suicide? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So let me ask all of you, is New Hampshire going to go for Kamala? Your calls next. 6:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just so that you know how artificial, how fake and phony, really fraudulent, the entire Commie Harris, as I like to call her, Comrade Kamala, her entire campaign is. You now have CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, I can go on, showing images of Kamala yesterday in New Hampshire. And she's walking on stage and she's waving, and you have these idiots waving these Harris Waltz signs. One of them, Opportunity Society, and they're waving to her and she's waving back. And 90% of them are from Massachusetts. In fact, it was so obvious, so blatant, so fake. CBS Boston, yes, WBZ TV. CBS Boston, okay? Their own, and you know how they're in the tank for Kamala Harris and the Democrats. Even they came out and criticized Kamala Harris yesterday, saying, we've seen the buses, 12 of them. It's Yankee written on them with the license plates. You're busing them in from Boston, for God's sake. There's hardly anybody from New Hampshire yesterday at her big economic policy speech. And they're starting to call her out, saying, what is it? You don't have real support in New Hampshire, so you got to fake it? Incredible. I'm telling you, absolutely incredible. Everything about her campaign is smoke and mirrors. Everything. Very quickly, because I want to go. The lines are jammed, so I'm going to go to the phone lines. All right. This is from William on Messenger. And I'm reading Williams, but I'm getting a lot of text messages as well saying the exact same thing. New Hampshire this morning is on fire. This is from William on Messenger. Jeff, this is one big lie about Kamala being so popular that Trump now is just thinking of abandoning New Hampshire. This is one big lie. As a resident of Pelham, New Hampshire, I can tell you there is 10 Trump signs for every one Kamala sign. And I can send you the proof. This is bullcrap. Yeah. Now, by the way, Pennsylvania now, Mark Halperin, a liberal journalist, but, well-respected in media circles, now says that effectively Pennsylvania is lost for Kamala Harris. That her positions on fracking, on climate change, on killing the Keystone XL pipeline, I could go on, is essentially now going to cost her Pennsylvania. He believes Trump will win Pennsylvania. Nevada and Arizona, there are more polls coming out now. They're starting to panic in the Harris camp. Arizona and Nevada, especially Trump's proposal, no taxing tips, which she tried to plagiarize, but everybody knows Trump is the one who means it, is starting to put those two key states out of range for Kamala. The path for her getting to 270 is getting narrower and narrower by the day. And I'm telling you, Trump is going to win New Hampshire. The only way that they can take New Hampshire, the Democrats, is if they steal it. Mark, speaking of New Hampshire, in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark. You're going to kick us off, and welcome.
Hey, good morning,
Mark, buddy.
Hey, listen, what a bunch of crap, pardon my language. This notion that she has New Hampshire is an absolute joke. The problem we have, Jeff, is the news isn't reporting all of the people that are out for Trump up in this state. So, I live up on the north end of Winnipesaukee, right? Belknap County has gone Trump both times that he ran. I mean, every town in this county voted for him. Did you know, Jeff, that a week ago we had a huge boat parade of Trump flags that paraded through Weir's Channel and around Lake Winnipesaukee? Was that reported on the news at all?
No.
I don't think it was, Jeff.
No, it wasn't.
Not one notion of it. Hundreds of boats. Everybody cheering. Nobody being angry. People on the street, on the bridges were cheering and shouting and giving thumbs up. I mean, this idea that she's going to win this state is a joke. I guess if your vision of New Hampshire is 10 miles from the Massachusetts border, then yeah, maybe she would, because that's the only place that people like her, Jeff, are places like Nashua, Salem, even into places that get up around Derry. You get over by UNH and Portsmouth. That 10-mile range within the border, that's where people like her. And that's because they're all Massachusetts people. But, once you get outside of that little beltway, nobody likes her. Nobody wants her, Jeff.
Mark, let me ask you this. Are we now the victim? I'm not saying you're a victim, but I'm talking about the population in general. Are we now the victim of a deliberate disinformation campaign by the media to try to, they're claiming now, she's leading 7, 8, 9 percentage points in New Hampshire. They're claiming now that, this is, it's almost as blue in New Hampshire as it is in Massachusetts. Is that your reality? Do you see that anywhere?
No, nothing, Jeff. I wear my Let's Go Brandon shirt when I go to the supermarket, and everybody walking by me giggles and gives me a thumbs up. Nobody wants her anywhere, Jeff. Everywhere that I go, people are like, yeah, Trump, and they all cheer and they all yell. You go to Manchester, Jeff. Manchester. He would have rallies there. 20,000 people would show up. And they're not coming from Massachusetts. They're coming from New Hampshire, Jeff. The fact that they have to bus people in, pay attention. Those same buses, Jeff, on Election Day, you're going to see those same buses coming across the Massachusetts border.
Oh, Mark, I love you, man. Mark, don't get me wrong. I only have eyes for my wife. But I love you in a non-sexual way, my friend. That's exactly what I told Grace. You and I really think alike, Mark. That's exactly what I told Grace last night. I said, you see, I bet you it's the exact same buses. They bring Massachusetts voters in on Election Day to try to steal it in New Hampshire. 6:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Kamala Harris's campaign now. Openly bragging, saying they have already won the Granite State, that Trump is going to pull out, that the writing is on the wall. They're citing several polls. I want to ask the people of New Hampshire, everybody, obviously, but especially the people of New Hampshire. We have an army of listeners in New Hampshire. Is this what you're seeing on the ground? Is Trump going to get wiped out in New Hampshire? And are they already waving the white flag? Now, as I told you, I believe this is a deliberate lie being peddled by the media in collusion with the Harris campaign to spread misinformation, disinformation, to try to demoralize Trump supporters and Trump voters in New Hampshire. I think it's a complete pack of lies. But that's me. I want to hear from you. And let me throw another quick log on the fire, bouncing off of Mark's incredible call. Those buses, and this has now been confirmed by I have the pictures. Thanks to Kevin, I have the pictures. And his people were there. He was there. And Jeff, bus after bus after bus, license plate, click, 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 click. Most of the rally goers at her major speech yesterday were Massachusetts residents bussed in from out of state. That's the only way she can try to make it appear that her campaign is popular and that people actually want to attend her events. It's pathetic. Really, it's absolutely pathetic. As I said, to the point that even CBS Boston, WBZ TV, the reporter came out and said, come on, this is ridiculous. 80-90% of the people they're not even New Hampshire voters. But those very same buses, and it happens every time there's an election in New Hampshire, they're bringing them in from Massachusetts, and they can vote same day, just lie and say they plan to be a New Hampshire resident. You know, I'm here now and I plan to be a resident, so I'm eligible to vote. So they vote in Massachusetts once and then they vote in New Hampshire a second time. And so I guess the question I want to ask the people of New Hampshire, are you sick and tired, A, of these Massachusetts refugees who flee the high taxes, the high crime, the sanctuary state, the illegal immigration of Massachusetts, but then they go to New Hampshire and vote exactly how they voted in Massachusetts? So are you sick of them, honestly? Number one. And number two, aren't you sick of constantly having Massachusetts invade your state? And I know invade is a hard word. Maybe I'm overstating it slightly. But, you know, here, look, New Hampshire is a pivotal battleground state. It's a pivotal battleground state. It's one of the 7 pivotal battleground states. And they're busing in Massachusetts residents to make it seem that Kamala is more popular and has more energy and momentum than she really does. And many of them also come and double dip and vote twice and directly interfere in your election in your state. You know, to be fair to the people of New Hampshire, they don't bus them in from New Hampshire for a rally in Massachusetts. So why does Massachusetts constantly stick its nose? Liberal Massachusetts, the moonbats, why are they constantly sticking their nose in New Hampshire? And are you sick of it? Because I know I would. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very, very quick. This is Harris yesterday. You want to see the kind of fantasy land that she's peddling? Listen to this. This is her about promoting small business should she win in November. Roll cut 10B, Mike.
We're going to help more small businesses and innovators get off the ground, okay? Now, I'm setting what some, I'm sure, are going to call a very ambitious goal, but you know what? I think we should admire ambition in each other. So I want to see 25 million new small business applications by the end of my first term.
I mean, this is like Soviet-style price controls. This is like taxing unrealized capital gains. This is like $5 trillion in tax increases. This is like banning fracking. This is like the Green New Deal. I could go on and on and on. Abolishing all private health insurance. Okay, I could go on and on. There are 34 million businesses across the entire country. Okay, across all of America. Okay, just so that you know, 34 million small businesses. If you want to know, that employs 62 million people. So basically almost half of all private sector jobs are created by small businesses. This whack job is now claiming that she's going to create, by the end of her first term, almost as many small businesses as there are right now across all of the United States. This is like Stalin's 5-year plans. You know, Lenin, Stalin, like these communists would come up with these ridiculous 5-year plans. You know, we'll have more industrial manufacturing output than Germany in 5 years. And then after that, another 5 years, more than the United States. And people are like, comrade, that means we're going to have more industrial output than the entire world combined. That's what I'm talking about. But we got, everybody's on a horse and buggy. What are you talking to me about? 95% of the country's illiterate. It's backward. Where are we going to get all this industrial capacity? Because I decree it. I'm Stalin. This woman's, and these idiots in the crowd. Well, Massachusetts moonbats. I bet Bill, I'm telling you, Bill in Sudbury was there. There was Bill with his sign. Oh, yeah, yeah. Or Chris in Gloucester. Yeah. Or Ben in North Andover. Bending over. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 25 million. Yeah. Let's go. How about 250 million? Yeah. You want to see how vile this woman is? I'm always disgusted and shocked how whenever there's a school shooting, and there was one in Georgia, 4 dead, 2 students, 2 teachers, 9 more wounded by another mentally ill shooter who, by the way, it's all coming out now, was known by the FBI a year ago to be very dangerous. In fact, we're now finding out the morning of the shooting yesterday, calls came into the school telling them there's going to be a shooting today. And again, the FBI dropped the ball. Again, it fell through the cracks. Okay? A 14-year-old psychopath. She knew nothing about the details of the shooting. Nothing. Nothing. She didn't know what gun was used. She didn't know how the shooting took place. She didn't know if it was 1 shooter, 2 shooter, 3 shooters. She knew nothing. But there she is, in good moonbat style, like a good little commie. Listen now to Kamala Harris. Roll cut 11. Mike.
Let us finally pass an assault weapons ban and universal background checks and red flag laws. Because we are clear on that point, it is a false choice to say you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and I know we need reasonable gun safety laws in our country.
Tell me, so if you're for the Second Amendment, just to show you what a pathological liar this woman is, tell me, why did 4 years ago, I'm not talking 40 years ago, 4 years ago, you supported a mandatory gun buyback program? In other words, confiscate everyone's guns, but just pay them. So here's a check. Give me your gun. She supported and wanted to impose a mandatory gun buyback program a la Australia, where they just come in and take all of your guns. And here's a check. And blank you. The bodies weren't even cold. The dead bodies weren't even cold. They didn't even know how many were wounded. And she's already pushing assault weapons bans, red flag laws. In other words, the agenda, the agenda, the agenda. How about, I don't know, thoughts and prayers? How about let's wait, I don't know, 1 hour? 60 minutes? Can we just find out what the evidence is? No. Gun control, grab the guns, grab the guns, grab the guns. David in Brookline. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you
for
taking my call. 3 quick points. Like everything else that they say and Kamala says, the opposite is true, and that includes small business and middle class. They're actually the wolves in sheep's clothing. Jeff, you mentioned some of the taxes, but one of the taxes that Kamala espoused just as recently as 2 weeks ago, I heard her, they want a 65%, I call it, tax on small family business. Sometimes it's called a wealth or death tax, but let me just make it very simple. Let's say your grandmother and your grandfather build up a small business, a deli, or anything, a plumbing supply store or a hardware store, and you're working in that store 50 years of family members, and then you paid all your mortgage, you paid all your bills, you employed a few people, you worked, 16 hours a day.
David, please hang on. I'm up against a hard break. By the way, David is completely right. And he's building up to a really important point. You're going to want to hear it. You have to know exactly what Kamala is going to do economically to our country. Next. 650 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, my friends, please, whatever you're doing, I need you to stop and listen very carefully. It's obvious what's going on. I knew this was going to happen when the news broke yesterday. We're clearly being sabotaged. This show is being sabotaged. It's very obvious to me. Many of you have been deluging, flooding the Kuhner man with texts saying that we have been taken off the air. On the AM dial, every other station, you can hear loud and clear. But 680 AM, it's all static. Now, you can still hear me via streaming, obviously, but if you're listening in your car, for example, or at a radio at home, you can't hear us. That's because we have been knocked off the air. I believe, I have no evidence for this, but I believe it is clearly the Biden regime. And they already started yesterday. I'm going to get to this in more detail, I promise, later in the show, because I want to focus on New Hampshire for now. But they started again with the Russia election interference. Again, the same tired, predictable cliches. It's 2016, 2020, all over again. So, Merrick Garland, that fraud, the Attorney General, along with Chris Wray, that other fraud, head of the FBI, came out and said, Putin and Russia are directly interfering in the election. They're working with Donald Trump to try to steal the election. And that they're spreading, let's do the good Russian, misinformatio and disinformatio. And that they're now going to be targeting certain radio personalities, certain bloggers, certain media outlets in the United States. They're already going after some very good bloggers already. They're shutting them down, saying that they are spreading Russian propaganda. In other words, censor the opposition to the Biden regime under the guise of Russian election interference. So, and I knew this was going to happen. I predicted this was going to happen. So, and they're setting up the accusation already. They're setting the stage that if Trump wins in November, they're going to say he stole it. Like they said he stole it in 2016 with the help of Vladimir Putin. It's the same tired playbook over and over and over. So the first Russia collusion hoax, that BS, that wasn't enough. The second one in 2020, that wasn't enough. The Hunter Biden laptop as Russian disinformation, that got proven to be another pack of lies. That wasn't enough. So let's just regurgitate that lie one more time, but that is to silence me, silence other vocal conservatives, whether it's on the internet or on social media or on the air. So anyway, we've contacted our engineers, and they are going to do everything in their power to try to restore our signal on air. But make no mistake about it. I'm telling you, I can guarantee it, this is the deep state. No question. Because we've had no problem with our signal, and suddenly now, after last night, after yesterday's announcement, suddenly now, you can't hear Jeff Kuhner on the air? Every other station on the AM dial is fine, except this show. So let me say this loud and clear. I need to say this. To the Biden regime, to Kamala Harris, to Merrick Garland, you piece of you-know-what, to Christopher Wray, and to the entire deep state, I will not be intimidated. I will not be bullied. I will not be cowed. You don't scare me. And you can call me any name in the book. You can smear me all you want. I will not be silenced. Do you understand? In fact, now I'm more determined than ever to expose, unmask, and defeat you. Blank off. 617-266-6868. Don't tell me we don't live under a regime of censorship. And don't tell me now the dark hand of authoritarianism is no longer in the United States. It is in the United States. And if Kamala wins in November, God forbid, it's going to get even worse. David in Brookline, I'm sorry about that, David, but I had to say this to inform all of our listeners, those that are still able to listen. David, you were building up to an absolutely brilliant point about Kamala Harris's economic tax plan and her policies. You own a family business. You've built it up over, say, 30, 40, 50 years. You've paid taxes through the nose for 30, 40, 50 years. But then suddenly someone dies, the death tax. Please pick up where you left off.
Thank you, Jeff. And my radio went out also, so I'm glad I have you on streaming. It's like everything else that they do. The opposite is true. When they say they're for small business, they're not. They're just presenting it that way. If, say, your grandmother or your grandfather builds up the business and works 16 hours a day, and you paid, like you say, all your taxes, and you happen to have bought your property in the small business. So after 50 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and employing a few people outside of your family or whatever the case may be, the grandparents die. And let's say after 50 years, the whole kit and caboodle is worth $1 million. Okay? How would those politicians know? They've never worked a hard day in their life. But what Kamala Harris wants to start, for starters, is a 65% wealth tax, or as I call it, a tax on small family businesses. What family has 65% of $1 million lying in the bank? So what happens? You have to sell everything to pay the government. Two last points that'll make it clear, Jeff. Many, many years ago, I went for a visit to China. What struck me, in the city, they have these little storefronts, and when you chat with these people, you realize none of them own the storefronts. They're owned by the government, and you work your you-know-what off to pay the government, and then you make a few dollars so you can afford a bowl of rice. So when Kamala Harris says, we're going to create opportunities for everybody in this economy, what kind of economy is going to be left by the time they finish with it? One last point, Jeff, if you'll allow it, and I greatly appreciate it, because this one is about the debate next week. Kamala is going to claim, or they're going to bring up, when they bring up the Israeli war, she's going to claim, don't lecture me, Mr. Trump. My husband is a proud Jewish man, which I find laughable since his daughter won't admit that she's Jewish. But President Trump's answer should just be straight-faced. I'm surprised you're not talking with a Middle Eastern accent, considering everything that you've done recently. That should be his answer, Jeff.
David, excellent points. And thank you very, very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Tommy in Brockton. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Yes, Jeff. And just to confirm, when you said that, I have my phone was on speakerphone. I went over to the radio, the Grundig radio, turned it up, and there's just nothing but white noise. I posted it on my Facebook page, Tommy Fuller 103. That you'll see my high school photo back when I had hair. All right, but anyway, I posted that on my Facebook page that WRKO, a stalwart of AM radio in Boston, is now off the air because of the Jeff Kuhner program being shut down. An open critic of the Kamala Harris campaign.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tommy.
No, this is serious. Once they start silencing people like that, if they get into power, don't think that history can't repeat itself. You know, if you go to Cambodia now, they're wonderful people that are over in Cambodia. All right? It's a beautiful Asian country. I go to the Philippines all the time. But, you know, if we go back to 1975, there were people in Cambodia murdering other Cambodians in the killing fields. Don't think that this can't happen in this country. You know, when you have vociferous liberal whack jobs like Bill in Sudbury and the other clown Ben up in Bendover, or whatever his name is, Andover, those are the people that can turn on you like rats. And look at what happened with in Germany with the Holocaust. Yes, 6 million Jews were slaughtered in the concentration camps, but there were other German nationals that were undesirables, whether they be homosexuals, mentally ill, or other people that didn't fit in with what the majority thought. And that is the reality that could quite very well happen in this country in its future. Don't think that we're not maybe 5-10 years away. And the other point being that David from Brookline brought up about, you know, future potential wealth. When Kamala Harris talks the term of equity, and I got this from my ex-wife, a relative who was black, that was just this whack job militant, that, well, you owe me because your ancestors owned slaves. You inherited money from former slave owners. No, I did not. Okay? That ancestor of mine in what is now Hinton, West Virginia, that was 6 generations ago. And with regards to the offspring of that one great-grandfather, 6 generations past, there's got to be thousands of people. My mother's maiden name was Sharp. There's thousands of Sharps in West Virginia, that name. It's like chins in a Chinese phone book. I'm sorry to use that reference, but it's just unbelievable. And Kamala talks about equity, that we didn't all start in the same place, but we want to have the same results. That's communism, Jeff.
There's no question.
But
Tommy, there's no question. And Tommy, I want to play something because I think this is going to shock you. Everything that you said, I agree with, except for one small little detail. You said we're 4 or 5 years away from this. I think we're here now. And I want to play something for you. And I want to get your reaction. In fact, I want to get everybody's reaction. And this is another reason why they're trying to knock me off the air. Okay? Because they don't want you to hear this. So I want to give a big hat tip to, these are conservative activists who have been trying to expose Michelle Wu. Speaking of a communist, Michelle Wu and what Mayor Wu has been doing to these are, Bostonians against Mayor Wu. What she is doing to the city of Boston. And they're citizen journalists. So there is an unhinged leftist man. I would say 20s. I don't think he's more than 30 years old. Tommy, you may disagree with me when you see the video. He's got a beard, full head of hair, unlike you and me. He's got a mask on, one of those COVID emergency masks. So you really can't see his face completely. He walks up to a woman. I believe she's a listener of the show. And she has a Trump sign, or a Trump sticker, forgive me, on her car. This was in Newton. Now, I want to stress to you, Tommy, this woman is in her car. She's done nothing to nobody. She's at a light, waiting for the light to turn green. Her only crime is that she has a Trump sticker on her car. This guy, who's, 5'11", 6 feet, 6'1", she's obviously very afraid, walks up to her. You have to see the eyes on him. He looks crazed. He's now encountered a Nazi. In his mind, this poor woman, who he doesn't know from a hole in the wall, is all of a sudden a Nazi. And he's talking to her now with the middle finger right in her face. Right in her face. He's got the middle finger through the window of her car, right in her face. This is Newton. This is not, I don't know what, San Francisco. Roll cut 20, Mike.
We did nothing to you.
You support fascism.
No, I don't.
Donald John Trump is a fascist.
Okay, you're entitled to your opinion. You are. I'm not disagreeing that you're
I'm
entitled to your
entitled to
opinion.
flip you off, you fascist. Leave Boston.
Okay.
Off, Nazi.
Okay, thank you.
She's scared. And I think, by the way, I think she handled it correctly. She wasn't confrontational, because he would have beaten the hell out of her. Like the brown shirts. He would have beaten the daylights out of her. And he's like, the whole time, the finger is in her face. And she senses, Tommy, this guy's he's gonna beat me black and blue. So she's like, okay, you have the right to your opinion. I don't disagree with that. And he's like, we have to clean it up. Get the F out of Boston. You're a Nazi. You're a fascist. You vote for Trump. Get the F out of Boston. What say you, Tommy?
That is why I carry mace on me. I wear a Trump hat, and it says Trump will be back, Trump 2024. And I go in a market basket, and I have the occasional person just kind of like glance up real quick, and they look away. I'm not gonna. It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. But I would say one thing else, Jeff, with regards to people from Massachusetts voting in New Hampshire. If there are New Hampshire residents that are listening to what I'm saying, find out those names of people who do same-day voting. Get those names and then contact Secretary of State Bill Galvin and cross-reference. And if they have voted twice in a federal election, they have just committed a federal felony.
Tommy, thank you very much for that call. Sandy in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Sandy, and welcome.
Jeff, just to let you know, I'm in Chester, and we can hear you on the radio, the entire 20 miles around us, no problem. As regarding that foolish woman, she has about as much chance of winning our state as Casper the Ghost. I am another one with the red hat in the diner, in the markets. People give me thumbs up. Love your hat, like your hat, start a conversation. The Biden-Harris, now the Harris Looney Tunes guy affiliate, absolutely despised by the folks up here. There are pickup trucks, and from the back, you have an American flag, you have a flag celebrating Trump. Signs all over Chester, Derry, Hampstead, Fremont, Raymond, Plasto. No, she and her lies will not win. And I tell you, I saw her on television, and I wonder how many joints she might have smoked. She was laughing her fool head off, or maybe she'd had a couple of cocktails. Up here, when it comes to voting, in my town, you show your license And when I speak with folks in other areas at the diner or the market, yes, their town insists on you showing your license. So I think, at least in this 20-mile radius that I run around in, we are good. And I tell
that's great
you what,
to hear, Sandy. That's great to hear, Sandy. You know, you're obviously a proud public Trump supporter. I want to play this again for you and get your reaction. This is a woman. I believe she listens to this show. She's minding her own business. She's driving her car. She's confronted by a radical leftist. I suspect he's Antifa or Black Lives Matter. He's a white guy with a beard, maybe mid-20s. Okay, big guy, strong guy. And the whole time he's talking to her, just think crazy eyes with one of those disposable COVID-19 masks. You know, because he's going to get COVID in September. So anyway, so he's got that stupid mask on his face, but he's got the middle finger right up to her. Now he's shouting it. We just got part of it because she finally decided to take her phone and start to record him. But he's telling her, get the F out of Boston. You're a fascist. You're a Nazi, because she has a Trump sticker on her car. I want to play it again, and I want to get your reaction. Roll cut 20, Mike.
We did nothing to you.
You support fascism.
No, I don't.
Donald John Trump is a fascist.
Okay, you're entitled to your opinion. You are. I'm not disagreeing that you're
I'm
entitled to your
entitled to
opinion.
flip you off, you fascist. Leave Boston.
Okay.
Off, Nazi.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. F off, Nazi. Get the F out of Boston. Now, I'm telling you, had she swore at him or had she really confronted him, he would have beaten her. He would have taken her out of that car. He could have probably easily beaten her to death. If that happened to you, Sandy, how would you react? I'm just curious.
this product known as pepper spray. Okay. Now, secondarily to that, the street on which I live, there might be one house which does not have a firearm. On the side door to my residence, don't worry about the dog, and it shows a gun with a hand. I am armed in my home. In the course of my travels over the past few years that I've been wearing my Trump hat, I have had all of 2 people negative. One was a woman who walked up to me and said, I'd shoot him if I could. And I said, God bless you, dear. And she walked off. And another time, as I'm checking out of Demulis's, now known as Market Basket, a man walked up to the register and said something to me about, he's evil. I said, God bless.
Yeah, well, that's the way to handle it. You nailed it, Sandy. Just say, God bless you. And in other words, don't escalate the confrontation. And I think that's why that woman in Newton handled it absolutely perfectly. No, but what bothers me, you can sense the fear in her voice. She was afraid, and she had a right to be. 7:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, under siege here at WRKO. Biden administration now is desperately trying to silence me. Obviously others. They are very worried about the information that we are giving out to you, to the entire country. And so we don't know exactly what happened, but you cannot hear us on the dial. This is about maybe 6:30, 6:35 was when the attack was launched on the station, and we are off the air on the dial. You can still listen to us via streaming and on HD radio. So people are still able to listen, but it's through the internet, via streaming, via the app, and of course, if you have high definition. But if you're just listening to me, as many of you do, radio in your car or radio at your home, all you're hearing is static. Engineering is on it. They're working now. All hands are on deck. Management has been made aware of the situation. But I will not be silenced, I will not be censored, and I will not be intimidated. In fact, I'm very angry. And this is just going to make me even more emboldened and more determined to expose this criminal regime, because that's what they are. These are political communist thugs. They are political thugs and communists who don't believe in freedom of speech, don't believe in freedom of expression, and are petrified of dissent and criticism. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. It's all on the table, my friends. Let's go to Dan in New Hampshire. Dan, you've been holding patiently. Thank you and welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Dan.
If you give me some time, I will, it's a free speech zone, so I will tell you what's exactly going on in New Hampshire. Okay. First of all, these fake polling, it's funded by George Soros, our Rockefellers, Arbella, Act Blue, and it's meant to keep people at home, to suppress the vote, and make it look impossible. It's the same thing in the governor's race. Okay, Jeff? It's the same thing. Chuck Morse is the guy. So the thing is when you start looking at Kamala Harris, okay, and there's parallels here. Yeah, she was a corrupt DA, okay, in California, and she buried a case, okay, in San Fran of sexually abused children from priests. Okay, it's the same thing in New Hampshire. The corrupt district attorney general, okay, in New Hampshire, Kelly Ayotte, who buried a case from YDC victims who were being brutally raped in New Hampshire, okay, and the state-appointed attorney to defend these kids, okay, David Vincianzo is a several-time donor to Kelly Ayotte. Okay, you see what's going on here? He was supposed to represent the children, okay, and he wasn't. He's a donor to Kelly Ayotte, okay, Blackstone Kelly.
Well, okay? Dan, because I don't want to get too much lost in the weeds. You know this much more than I do, and that 99.9% of the audience. To me, what is clear, I followed Kelly Ayotte for many years when she was in the Senate. She's a globalist. She is part of the Romney, Bush, McCain wing of the Republican Party. So, she's running as a Sununu Republican. That tells you everything you need to know. So I don't look at Kelly Ayotte as the salvation of New Hampshire. Quite the opposite. To me, she's part of the problem in New Hampshire. And no, let me tell you, to me, what I find most disgusting. Where is Kelly Ayotte? Let's leave everything else off the table, just for the sake of argument, Dan. Where is Kelly Ayotte on election fraud? Nowhere. Where is she on voting fraud? Nowhere. They stole New Hampshire in 2020. They stole it right underneath our nose. Donald Trump won New Hampshire in 2020. He did. I'm sorry, but the facts are the facts. Has Kelly Ayotte said anything about the corrupt election system in New Hampshire? Nothing. Just like Chris Sununu has said, nothing. So to me, Kelly Ayotte is just another useless, feckless rhino. That to me is Kelly Ayotte in a nutshell. No, Dan, to me, the larger issue is this. I look at people who live in New Hampshire, and I love the people of New Hampshire. Believe me, those are my people. Okay? Like Kuhner country. You're my people. How do you allow someone like Kamala Harris to come to your state to deliver what is billed by her and the entire media as one of her most important major economic policy addresses? And she's got 11 to 12 buses loaded with people from Massachusetts because she can't find 100 supporters in the Portsmouth area. So she's got to bus in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Massachusetts moonbats to provide the illusion, the fantasy that she's actually got some popular support. And the people of New Hampshire just stand back and take it. And the media in New Hampshire, for the most part, Not all. There's been some excellent local reporting. But for the most part, they just stand back and take it. And to me, the mother of all points, Dan, how do the people, the live free or die state, which I love that motto, how many every election they come up from Massachusetts, these corrupt liberal Democrats, they voted here, and then they vote a second time in New Hampshire. Those very same buses carry those very same moonbats who illegally vote in New Hampshire elections, helping the Democrats steal election after election after election. Dan, to me, that's the issue. And Kelly Ayotte is a coward because she says nothing about how our own state is being stolen from us. 7:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, we are still down in terms of on air on the dial. We are obviously on streaming. They haven't been able to stop us there. But so far, if you're trying to listen to us in your car or at home on a regular radio, all you're hearing is static. That is because I believe the deep state and the Biden regime, there's no question, are desperately trying to censor and suppress the Kuhner man, and they're not going to succeed. They're not going to succeed. We're going to continue to uncover all of the fraud that we've now discovered in New Hampshire and everything else now that is happening with Biden and Harris. And just very quickly, I want to read this. This is from someone who knows New Hampshire extremely well. This is from 802. Jeff, you have it down. The New Hampshire lie, i.e. that Kamala Harris is leading in the polls and that Trump apparently is going to pull out of New Hampshire, which, as I told you, is a complete lie. But anyway, the New Hampshire lie is yet one of many tactics in the overall strategy of stealing the election. And in particular, it is the manufacturing of the illusion that Harris is narrowly ahead of Trump. This impression created by the media and the deep state is required to put the public stamp of approval on the ultimate theft of the election. But this is not the only tactic. There are many, and they are layered. On your station's national platform, just this morning, one more lie pandered has Attorney General Garland and FBI Director Chris Wray claiming that Putin is working with Trump to quote-unquote interfere with the election. Again, the same lie, the same hoax. This is the big steal by 1,000 small thefts. And then this person goes on to say, please, you got to listen to this. To support your observation, Jeff, that most of those Harris fans up in New Hampshire were bussed in from Massachusetts, one of my old friends is way up in the food chain at a major television station in Boston. He went with a group to New Hampshire yesterday at the Harris rally and was posting on Facebook about the quote-unquote energy of the Harris rally. So you see, most in the media went there to New Hampshire, and they knew that these residents were bussed in on 11 to 12 separate buses, orange buses, you can see Yankee on them, with Massachusetts license plates. They knew that 80 to 90% of the people in that crowd can't vote in a New Hampshire election. They're Massachusetts liberals and moonbats. And yet they're going on Facebook. Oh, look at the energy. Look at the momentum. The grassroots surge. Oh, my God. They're wild for Kamala. It's propaganda. It's disinformation. It's misinformation. It is intended to demoralize us, to paralyze us, and to make us think that we're going to lose when in fact we're going to win. Don't buy it. Don't believe it. We know the truth. Kamala Harris is going down. And you can try to censor Jeff Kuhner till the cows come home. That fundamental fact will not change from now until November, because the American people have now awakened. They understand she's Commie Harris. And this country doesn't want communism. Bruce in Woburn. Thanks for holding, Bruce, and welcome. Bruce. All right, there it is. We got him. Bruce, how are you, my friend? Boy, there was a lot of those yesterday at the Kamala rally, Bruce. A lot of moonbats yesterday. They were howling and howling big time.
Well, I'm at work, and I just drove down 111 in New Hampshire, and the lies and deceits, it's all this house. And it's just the lies and deceits, Jeff. But getting out of that, I want to go back to the school shooting. That 14-year-old kid, I don't care if you're 14 or 12 years old, you shoot people and kill people, he should have never got arrested. He should have got shot. And
Bruce, did we lose you?
No, I'm here, Jeff.
Okay, sorry, you got cut out. See, now I think they're starting to mess with the calls now. Okay, but anyway, keep going. Just keep. Our engineers are working on it, but look, I'm telling you, this is either CIA, the NSA, whatever, but they're trying now to disrupt this show. There's no question. But please, keep going. So basically, your point, Bruce, is they shouldn't have arrested him. They shouldn't have taken him alive. When you kill 2 students, 2 teachers, wound 9 others, when you're a cold-blooded, mentally ill psychopath, you just take this guy out, correct?
All day. It should be a deterrent to anybody, even somebody that doesn't have a brain, a 12-year-old and 14-year-old, because they've been brought up in a non-God-loving atmosphere where they have no conscience. I'm sorry. There is no conscience for killing people. But getting back to my original thing is, it's all lies and deceits with this New Hampshire thing.
Oh, I agree. Bruce, I completely agree, and I want to thank you for your courage. Look, I agree with you. Look, I was just in New Hampshire over the weekend. I mean, I'm not saying I spent hours in New Hampshire. But, you know, we drove, we stopped, the kids needed a break, Grace needed a break, I needed a break. I look left, I look right, everywhere we stopped. It's Trump sign after Trump Vance, it was Trump Vance sign after Trump Vance sign. I'm telling you, it was a sea of signs. So don't tell me that, you know, it's already over for Trump in New Hampshire and that Trump has abandoned the state, and his campaign turns around and says, we're going to pour even more money into New Hampshire. What are they talking about? We're going to add more campaign staff. We're going to be advertising even more. What the hell is... They're just lying. And the media is lying on their behalf. Honestly, at this point, I don't know who's the bigger liar. The Harris campaign or the media acting as their surrogates. Simon in Arlington. Thanks for holding, Simon. I appreciate it, and welcome.
Yeah, I think, you know, Trump has to be very careful in the debate, you know, if he would.
I mean, look at this. Look what they're doing to the show. Look at this. So this, you know, Simon is trying to make the point about Trump having to be careful in the debate, and now you got music being injected into the calls. So they're trying to kill the calls. This is Biden, I'm telling you. That's son of a, I got to be careful. That SOB, or his people. Now it's called. Now they're throwing in music. See, because they don't want people to call into the show. That's part of their strategy now, to suppress the phone lines. Simon, please continue. But don't let this stop you. Go ahead, Simon. Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. You know? So, no, Mike, you're not going to win. No, Mike, you're not going to win. I'm telling you, they're not going to win. So they can try to do this, you know. So, no, look, I'm telling you, this This is going to become a political war. They don't know who they're messing with. So if I got to take this show completely online, if I got to take this show, by the way, that's why I'm urging all of you, download the app. Please download the app. You can go to WRKO.com/Kuhner, download the app to the show so you can listen to it on your computer or on your phone. But we're not, they're not going to silence us. Okay. HD radio. Okay. All right. You can go to HD radio 2 100.7. Okay. WZLX is us. Okay. So if you have HD radio 2 100.7, go to 100.7 on HD radio 2 and you can hear us. That they haven't been able to shut down. Thank you, Sandy. But again, if you can download the app, we're still up on streaming. Please download the app. It's like, I'm telling you, it's like under the old Soviet Union. They had to find all these techniques and, how to get by the censorship, how to get by the blacklisting, how to get by the persecution and the harassment. They're not going to win. We're going to get our message out. I promise. Stephen, I was going to go to you. I don't want to rush you. So let me just do a quick reset. Please, Kuhner Country, call in. I'm going to keep taking your calls. We're not going to let these thugs and criminals win. This is our show, and we're going to do our show no matter what. 617-266-6868. Is New Hampshire lost to Trump? I say that's a huge lie. And have you been the victim of that, like that poor woman in Newton? Have you had a leftist walk up to you and threaten you and call you a Nazi because you're a Trump supporter? 749 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, powering through, my friends. That's all I can tell you. If you're trying to listen to us on the terrestrial dial, in other words, in your car or at a radio at home, we have essentially been knocked off the air. The engineers are doing everything they can to try to restore the transmission. Clearly, this is an attack by the Biden regime. I'm going to get to this in greater detail later in the show. They're gunning for me. They're gunning for other conservative commentators. I guess we're agents of Russia. I'm not kidding. So this is now how they plan to try to censor and silence me, and it's not going to work. Now, I'm urging all of you, please, if you can, go to WRKO.com, click on Listen Live. You can listen to us right there via streaming, WRKO.com, and just click on Listen Live. What I really would like in the long term is for all of you to download the app. So what you do is you go to your app store, say you have an iPhone, iPad, whatever, and download the iHeartRadio app. The iHeartRadio app, and then you can listen to me on your phone, on your computer, on your iPad, whatever, anytime you want. Anytime you want. And if you have access to it, we can also be heard on HD Radio 2 at 100.7. So HD, high definition Radio 2, HD Radio 2, 100.7. They haven't knocked us off there. So, but anyway, if you can, go to WRKO.com, click on Listen Live, or go to your app store and download the iHeartRadio app. 617-266-6868. Okay, let me just do a super quick reset. I'm going to get to Sandra in Boston, I promise. Let me just play this clip one more time. We're also going to post it after the show. I want you to see this. So I want to thank Bostonians Against Mayor Wu. They're the ones who sent me this story. This is a woman. I believe she's a regular listener of the show. She is in Newton, Massachusetts. For those of you listening outside of Mass, Newton is essentially a suburb of Boston. Actually, a fairly well-to-do suburb of Boston. She is, when I'm telling you, she's minding her own business. She is in her car. She's not bothering anybody. She's on the road in her car. Her crime, she has a Trump sticker, small Trump sticker. So she's a Trump supporter. You know, you can tell she's a Trump supporter. This 20-something punk with a COVID disposable mask on. He's got this beard, crazy eyes. He's a radical leftist. I think he's Antifa, BLM. He belongs at Columbia University. Okay, that's where he really belongs. You know, chanting death to America, death to the Jews. So he's this crazy leftist. He runs up to her and he starts yelling and screaming. We have to clean up the language. Get the F out of Boston. You're an effing Nazi. You're an effing Nazi. Get the hell out of Boston. And as he's talking to this poor woman, she is petrified. He's talking to her through her car window. Her car window is down. He's on the passenger side. And he's got his middle finger right in her face the whole time. Now, the audio doesn't convey this, but trust me, when you see the actual video, he looks like he's going to kill her. If you can imagine eyes bulging out of his head and his face all strained, full of rage. And you can hear in her voice, she's afraid. She now realizes if she tells him to F off, or if she starts to argue with him, he's going to drag her out of the car and he's going to beat her. I mean, he's going to beat her senseless if she's lucky, if not kill her. It is the eyes of an anti-Trump zealot, of an anti-Trump fanatic. So imagine a wild man, young man, strong, big, confronting a woman in her car, middle finger right in her face. Roll cut 20, Mike.
To you.
You support fascism.
No, I don't.
Donald John Trump is a fascist.
Okay, you're entitled to your opinion. You are. I'm not disagreeing that you're
I'm
entitled to your
entitled
opinion.
to flip you off, you fascist. Leave Boston.
Okay.
Off, Nazi.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now, and she tried to de-escalate the situation, which is exactly the right thing to do. Now, she's lucky. She's very lucky. Now, this comes from the party of tolerance and compassion and respect for diversity. Where's the tolerance? Where's the compassion? Where's the respect for any kind of intellectual, philosophical, political diversity? None. And that's what I'm trying to warn everybody about. Democrats today, liberal so-called progressives today, are totalitarian thugs. They're Marxists, they're communists. They don't believe in tolerance. They're not liberal, they're illiberal. They're authoritarian. They want to wipe out all opposition. And yes, that includes using political violence. She's lucky to be alive. If she started to run her mouth, I'm telling you, he would have beaten her. He would have beaten her black and blue. He probably would have killed her. Now, let me tell you who I blame. Outside of him, obviously. He deserves to be blamed. I blame Joe Biden. I blame the media. And I blame Commie Harris. Okay? Comrade Kamala. Because what have they done now for the last 3.5 years? Trump is Hitler. Trump is a white supremacist. Trump is a fascist. Trump will destroy democracy. Trump is evil. Evil. Trump is an enemy of the people, an enemy of the state. And they haven't just vilified him. They vilified everybody who supports him and voted for him and wants to vote for him. And they have so dehumanized him and his supporters. Look. Now you're being literally harassed and persecuted on the streets of Newton, right outside of Boston, and being told, you vote for Trump, you're an effing Nazi, get the F out of Boston. You're effing Hitler. You're an effing Hitler lover. We are on the road to serious political violence in this country if we continue down this path. The hatred that the Democrats have unleashed, the hatred that the media has unleashed, is getting people killed and is going to get even more people killed. And so what I want to ask all of you is, Number one, if you were in that situation, you're in your car, you have a Trump t-shirt, a Trump hat, or a Trump sticker, or whatever, and you're confronted by one of these militant, radical Harris leftists, and they're telling you to get the F out of you, what would you do? Honestly, what would you do? All bravado aside, what would you do? And secondly, has this ever happened to you already? This woman was brave enough to videotape part of it and then to have it posted. Has something like this happened to you? I cannot tell you the hatred that I've gotten. The middle fingers that I get, the FUs that I get, I'm constantly told, get the F out of Boston, get the F out of Massachusetts, get the F out of America. You wouldn't believe the vile emails and texts that I get. When I tell you that these liberals and Harris supporters are sick, they are really sick. The only people that are enemies of democracy are them. This is pure projection, I'm telling you. And let me throw this quick log on the fire. When Trump wins in November, and he is going to win in November, how do you think animals like this guy are going to behave? You think the riots of 2020 were bad? You watch when Trump wins in November. These left-wing terrorists, these rabid Harris supporters are going to riot, loot, and start to burn cities to the ground. They're not going to accept a Trump victory. Mark my words. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. All right, let's go to, is it Therese? Therese in New Hampshire. Therese, thanks for holding and welcome.
Thank you so much, Kuhner. I don't know if you remember me. I was the nurse that was arrested for uttering the word amen in 2021
yes.
and standing up against the COVID.
Oh, I remember you, Therese. Therese, what took you so long to call back, Therese? We missed you.
You need to get on the Kuhner show. So I do have a Trump bumper sticker on the back of my my car. And I get everything from the thumbs up to the finger. I've gone through so much in the last 3 years. But the best thing I can say to everyone is we've got to stand in solidarity. Everyone needs to be normalizing Trump as much as we can. And I know it's easier to be said here in New Hampshire than probably the heart of Boston. My 22-year-old had to drive my car through Boston down to Rhode Island. And she said, Mom, I actually got more thumbs up than I got anything else. And so you do have these episodes of these unhinged crazies that are scary as heck. And what we say when we're either doing, a flag wave or out in the community and we have one kind of come up to us really hostile, is I just say, you know what? I have to tell you, I'm going to continue to fight for your freedom to feel the way you feel right now, but you really need to take a deep breath. We are not here. We are not your enemy. And I just, it's so hard because they won't even listen. And we are definitely up against things being so polarized. They're getting increasingly dangerous. I am running for executive council. I'm in a 6-person race, and now it's just the two of us, and I'm going up against an establishment politician with a lot of nefarious background. And, we're in a truth crisis. We have, this whole, it really has to be from the bottom up that we try and take the seat and take the keys to this country and drive it out from being driven into the ground. And the only way we're going to do that is to be bold, to be brave, to be courageous. I mean, President Trump, he put aside his golf game. He even took a bullet for us, right? And he's leading by example. And so my one thing that I would say to everyone is take back every possible seat you can take, because if we don't take the seat, we know who will. So if you can walk upstairs and you have a good head on your shoulders, you can run for office. You can figure it out if you have the time if your family can support you, if you can be away from work enough to dedicate, whether it be a selectman, school board, state rep, but we all need to be stepping in to the ugly, because I just don't see any other way out of this. Talking about the problem isn't going to get us out of it. And Trump is only one person, and the corruption is at every single level. And if you can't run for office, I would encourage you to find someone you believe in and do everything you can to support them. I've been doing 18-hour days. I planted another 300 signs yesterday. It's exhausting.
That's incredible.
I've never worked so hard for a $17,000 a year job in my life, right? As a nurse, I don't need to be doing this. But Trump doesn't need to be doing it either.
Therese, look, I'm going to be
gotta find those people.
Therese, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, like I'm in the confessional. Really, God is my witness. I'm not saying this to stroke your ego. I'm not saying this to tell you how great you are, to flatter you. I'm really speaking from the heart. If we had 10,000 people like you in this country, we wouldn't have any of these problems. It is so admirable. Your courage, your bravery, your determination, your patriotism, your persistence, your dedication. Really, honestly, I really tip my hat off to you. I really, really do. Therese, I've got to ask you, because I respect you so much, I want to get your take on this. And please, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. I won't be offended. Have you ever you've seen somebody with a Biden, Harris shirt, a Biden sticker, a Harris Waltz sticker, whatever. You've seen somebody who's publicly identified as a Biden or Harris supporter. In all honesty, have you ever flipped that person the bird? Have you ever told them to go F themselves? Have you ever told them to get the hell out of the city that you are in? Have you ever threatened them? In other words, have you ever done anything nasty or malicious to someone simply because you disagreed with them and they were a supporter of the regime?
One of my best instructors in high school was the debate teacher, and at the beginning of class he said, write down where your position is on the top 10 issues: abortion, death penalty, and then he made us argue the opposing side for our grade. And I am so grateful that he had us do that, because his point was, until you can get in the head of your opposition, you really understand why they're standing so firm, you're not deeply rooted in your own principles. So, the reality is, if you go and you watch what they're watching on TV and you unravel why they, their perceptions, their reality, why they are where they're at, I actually feel empathy for them, because they've just been so deceived. The lies are so blatant, and they're trusting things that aren't trustworthy. And us coming across to them hostile or, polarizing it further is not going to, they're under stress when, as a nurse, you look at these individuals and their emotion, it's always confusion, frustration to anger, right? So we have to unravel that. If they're angry, we have to figure out, why are they frustrated? And if they're frustrated, what was the confusion? And what I do is, I get attacked all the time, because everyone in New Hampshire knows I'm this, far right conservative female, right? And so I get attacked for my positions all the time. I just say, listen, at the end of the day, I want to make sure your tax dollar is going to the people who need it, and not the lobbyist who wants to drive a new Ferrari. And we all agree on that same topic, right? So you've got to find the common ground when you're talking with these people and say, hey, I see you're angry. I see you're frustrated. I see you're confused. You don't understand why I could possibly feel the way that I feel about President Trump. Can I tell you that I don't think my $20 going down to Washington, D.C. is ever going to see the light of day back to the person here in New Hampshire that needs it, where I would much rather make sure that $20 actually gets a jar of peanut butter and, a banana and a bottle of water to the guy standing on the corner. Would you agree with that? Because they see us as not being humanitarian. They see us as being the wretched, corporate, money-hungry, hurt everyone else. So you have to understand how we're being perceived, and you have to then work to unravel that. And there's work for us to be done, because we do sit silent. We are the silent majority, and we're misunderstood. So, and getting more angry at them is only putting more fuel on the fire.
Interesting.
Instead of showing compassion to them and saying, okay, let's find where we both agree. We're both humans. We want to work and come home, go kayaking, enjoy our families. We want to feel safe. So you got to go back to, and we're not each other's enemy. The enemy is the tyrants who are taking all the money and using it for their own, nefarious reasons.
Well, that's a great point.
My opponent, backdoor deals, no bid contracts, commission to the person who got the contract, lost $70 million. None of that's even coming up in the race. Was the AG during the height of the sex abuse for the children here in New Hampshire, which could bankrupt the state. And people who are voting are just getting flyers in the mailbox, and it doesn't speak to any of that. And how do we combat that when the media isn't going to, and people are like, well, you got to get that out, do a mailer. Well, a mailer's $40,000. Do you want me to be beholden to somebody who donates to my campaign $40,000? There's no way out of this except for us to use radio, use social media, all of us really talking to our sphere of influence. I told everyone, go look at the numbers and how many people voted in your primary in your town, and guess how many would have voted. And people are like, wow, 5,000 people in my town and only 400 people showed up to vote. And most of the votes were decisioned off of 50 votes. Your vote matters. You talking to your friends and family and saying, are you going to vote Tuesday? No, because I don't know who the candidates are. Okay, well, whoever, it's a group test is what I've been telling my sphere of influence. It's due on Tuesday, but the teacher's letting it be open book, and the teacher's letting us all work together to figure out the answers, the best answers.
Therese,
so let's do
really
our
well said.
Together.
Really well said. Therese, best of luck. And I just wish I could vote for you. Seriously. I just wish I could vote for you. Therese, please don't be a stranger. Don't wait another 3 years until you call me again. Please call more often. Okay, Therese? God bless you and keep up the outstanding work. 617-266-6868. I'm telling you, it's people like her that's going to save our country. I'm being brutally honest with all of you. And, there's so much of wealth of information that she said. But, ultimately, we have to vote. We have to vote. And if we swamp the polls, they can't manufacture enough ballots. They can't to steal the election. And it's really that simple now. What are we willing to do now to save our country? 617-266-6868 is the number. And just one other very, very quick point. Look, the reason why I asked Therese is because I know people in this audience. I've never given a Democrat the middle finger or swore at them or get the hell out of Rentham or get the hell out of Boston, or I've never done that, ever. Now, as I'm driving, what am I thinking in my head? That's something else. I don't want to lie to you, I'm like, what a jerk, like, oh, what a moron, you're like, who the hell? In my mind, I'm thinking, like, who votes for Kamala? Like, wait, you have two brain cells up there? Yeah, that's what I say to myself in my head. But I've never verbally assaulted someone, threatened someone, bullied someone, God forbid, physically assault someone. Because I saw a Biden-Harris sticker or a Harris-Waltz sticker or some crazy anti-Trump sticker or whatever. But I'm telling you, on the left, this is now becoming common. It's it's happening not just here. It's happening all over the country. Trump supporters, we are now being targeted. There is a target on our back. And I blame Biden, Harris, and the media because they have fanned the flames of hatred deliberately. Paul in Rhode Island, thanks for holding, Paul, and welcome.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Paul?
I'm getting you loud and clear on WZLX HD2. That has not been affected.
Good. Excellent.
Now, the Democratic...
Boy, this break came out of nowhere. Paul, please hang on. Mike, the breaks are killing me. I mean, I got enough dealing with Biden, for God's sake, and the deep state. I got to put up with you too, Mike, with these breaks. Okay, more next. 8:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, I'm going to get to Paul in Rhode Island, I promise. But this is coming straight from the top. So this has never happened before. I think this is unprecedented. So this is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. As you know, the Kuhner Report has been knocked off the air since about 6:30 this morning. Okay, on terrestrial radio, you cannot hear us. So you can still hear us on WRKO.com, on the internet, via streaming, on the app, the iHeartRadio app. That's why I'm urging everybody, please download it and get the app, or on HD Radio 2 100.7. But if you're listening to 680 AM in your car, radio at home, whatever, we have been knocked off the air now for about almost 2 hours. This is the question for all of you, Kuhner Country, and I'd love for all of you to participate. Why do you think I've been knocked off the air? What do you think is the real cause? A, the Biden regime. B, aging transmitters. A, the Biden regime. B, aging transmitters. You know where I stand. And many people in this building are telling me it's A. And I believe it's A. And my vote is A. But the question is, what do you think? I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, WRKO.com/Kuhner. Kuhn is in national ER. WRKO.com/Kuhner. Kuhner. You can also vote via X, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word. Kuhn is in national ER. Paul, let's go right back to Paul in Rhode Island. You are listening to the Kuhner Man on HD Radio 2 100.7. So you've been listening to me now uninterrupted for the last couple hours. Please, Paul, pick up where we left off.
Happen, regardless of whether or not you're a Democrat or Republican, to get along and trying to bring both parties together to do what's in the best interest of this country. That's thrown out the window. It really is. Hello?
No, I'm listening to every word, Paul.
It's like this. And Bush did it during the 9/11 attack. Oh, and speaking of which, I like to point out that about a year ago, Kamala Harris was in New York giggling at the ceremonies, right, during 9/11, okay? And where was Biden? In Anchorage, Alaska. He wasn't anywhere near Washington, D.C., or Pennsylvania, or New York. He had other plans. That's where his priorities are not on the American people. I mean, they don't care. Neither does Kamala Harris. That's why we're winning. That's why, I mean, the heat is being turned up. The heat is being turned up all the way.
No, Paul, look, she's an awful candidate.
Yes.
You're completely right. She's a completely awful candidate. And, you mentioned 9/11. Here, please, don't take my word for it. You can look it up. I played the cut already, was it a couple of weeks ago? But it's everywhere. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere. She's asked right after Abbey Gate in Afghanistan. Okay, last week was the 3rd-year anniversary of that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. 13 American soldiers, including one from Massachusetts, by the way, murdered, killed by an Islamist terrorist bomber. 13 fallen soldiers, dead, slaughtered in cold blood, directly because of the incompetence and ineptitude, frankly, the criminal negligence of Joey Biden, of Joey and Kamala Harris. Comrade Kamala is asked in the immediate aftermath of this, do you have a comment on the 13 dead fallen heroes? Paul, please look it up, because I don't want you to think I'm exaggerating. She laughs. She cackles. She laughs. To her, this was one big joke. Now, I'm telling you, the more this gets out there and other examples like this, she's going to get wiped out in Nevada. She's getting wiped out in Arizona. She's going to lose Pennsylvania. She's going to lose Georgia. She's going to lose Michigan. She's going to lose Wisconsin. And she's going to lose New Hampshire. And this thing is going to be over. And so they can put out all the fake polls they want. They can come out and claim that Trump has abandoned New Hampshire when that's an absolute lie. They can bus in all these crazy liberals from Massachusetts into Portsmouth to make it seem like she has a crowd when no one wants to listen to her Marxist garbage. She's going down. If it's possible, I'm telling you, if it's possible, she's even a worse candidate than Joe Biden. Because, yes, he had dementia. Yes, he had cognitive decline. Yes, the guy was clearly senile or half senile. But he knew something about policy. He had some serious political experience. He couldn't string two sentences together. But at least he knew something of what he was talking about. This one is a complete and utter airhead. She's a complete and utter buffoon. She's an empty vessel. She's nothing. She's literally nothing. And you can put lipstick on a pig all you want. It's still a pig. Oink, oink. Kamala the pig. 8:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner on the counterattack. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, apparently now I'm hearing we are back on the air on the terrestrial dial. Look, clearly the Biden regime is trying to censor this show. I want to thank all the engineers. They rushed and got us back on the air. It was all hands on deck. But I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to let this go. This clearly now is part of their attempts to censor, suppress, and muzzle critical voices of this regime. And just very quickly, yesterday, Biden sent out Attorney General Merrick Garland, along with Christopher Wray, that hack at the FBI, the director of the FBI. And they now claim, if you can believe this, that Russia is back. They now came out claiming that the Russians are launching this massive, coordinated, systematic effort, to steal the election from Kamala Harris and hand it over to Donald Trump. So it's 2016 and 2020 all over again. By the way, nothing on Iran, nothing on China. And we know that communist China and the mullahs in Iran, our own intelligence communities had to admit it, are doing everything in their power to flip the election over to Kamala. But that doesn't matter. They're not addressing that. No. It's Putin. It's the Kremlin. It's the Russia collusion hoax all over again. So on the one hand, they are trying to set the stage, as I said earlier, that when Trump wins in November, they're trying to set the stage to say, oh, he stole it from Comrade Kamala, the way he stole it allegedly, remember, in 2016 from Hillary. So already they're laying the groundwork for that garbage, okay, for that lie. But the second reason, and this is why I'm talking about it now, because it relates to what happened to our whole show today. They now say that according to the FBI, to the CIA, to the NSA, to the deep state, that there are now voices in America parroting Kremlin propaganda what they're calling misinformatio, as the Russians put it, misinformation, American voices who are parroting Putin's line and are apparently in bed with Putin and the Kremlin. And they're saying because of this, they're using this as a justification. Listen now to this. To shut down and silence the accounts of key conservative bloggers, key conservative commentators. They're going after a media company based in Tennessee. They're branding them as terrorists. And now they say that they're coming after anybody who they believe is a Putin apologist or a Kremlin apologist. And all of us, and I said this to Grace last night, I said, you watch. They're coming after me. They're coming after Tucker Carlson. They're going to come after other voices because they don't want people to hear the truth about who Kamala Harris is, who Joe Biden is, and what's in store for us, God forbid, should they win in November. And so, if you dare to expose and unmask this regime, well, no, you're just echoing Putin's talking points. No, you're just engaging in misinformation a la the Kremlin. And so these voices, according to Merrick Garland, that thug, and Christopher Wray, well, they have to be silenced. These voices have to be taken down. This is naked election interference. Now, whether they can prove anything, like I love Vladimir Putin. Are you kidding me? I listen to anything coming out of Russia TV. Are you serious? Why? Well, but you oppose the war in Ukraine. Yeah, so does the majority of the American people. I don't believe it's in the national interests of the United States. Well, that's Russian disinformation. You have to shut up you have to silence the Kuhner man. I want you to hear this, all of you. Please, you need to hear this. Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. yesterday are now sounding a 5-alarm fire. Okay? A 5-alarm fire. In Brazil, Kamala Harris's big ally, Lula, he's a radical leftist like her, has literally banned X. He's banned the whole platform. They're openly censoring Elon Musk, and they're openly censoring anybody who dares to criticize the Brazilian regime on X. They've literally banned X. Well, listen now to what RFK and what Elon Musk are now saying. They're now saying that should Harris win in November, that she will shut down X, what formerly known as Twitter, the whole platform. She's going to shut the whole thing down. And Elon Musk linked to a clip of hers. This was her in 2019. Now, this is what he said. This is what she actually believes. Free speech, according to Elon Musk, is the bedrock of democracy. He's completely right. And the Democratic Party, and he puts in parentheses, Kamala is just a puppet, wants to destroy it. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now allying with Elon, saying that they want now to completely take down X. Kamala Harris was asked, what do you make of Twitter? And she said that Twitter is spreading too much misinformation and disinformation. And that unless they conform to the government's narrative, to the regime's narrative, and adhere, this is her word, to government oversight and supervision and regulation. In other words, unless they toe the regime line, whether it be on the war in Ukraine, whether it be on open borders and illegal immigration, whether it be on the Green New Deal or climate change, whether it be on hate speech, whether it be on anything that they decide, then they must be silenced and taken down. Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are now openly telling their supporters, freedom of speech, freedom of expression is literally on the line now. That Harris is going to follow what Lula did, that communist thug in Brazil, and he's going to shut X down because it's one of the few genuine free speech platforms left in the United States. Now, let me go even further, okay? And you can hold me to this. She wins the election. More accurately, they steal the election. I'm going to be taken off the air. I don't know when. I'm not going to say it's going to happen on a precise day. I'm not going to survive. I'm off the air. Tucker Carlson can kiss his podcast goodbye. Tulsi Gabbard can kiss her podcast goodbye. They already put Tulsi Gabbard on a secret terrorist watch list. She and her husband now, whenever they fly, are now repeatedly interrogated and harassed by the TSA. 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row. They have 3 air marshals on every plane that she's on. Like a modern day Gestapo. And this only began after they overthrew Biden in a coup, replaced Biden with Kamala, and then she came out blasting Kamala Harris as a puppet of the military-industrial complex. And then a whistleblower came out, to that person's credit, and said, Tulsi, you just went after Kamala and went after her hard. You exposed her. Now they're branding you, someone who fought in our military for decades, served in Iraq, put her life on the line, who still serves in the National Guard. You now are a terrorist. You are an enemy of the state. You are being surveilled. You're being spied on. You're being followed. And you're on a secret terrorist watch list. Tulsi Gabbard's podcast is gone if they win in November. These are Marxist communist thugs. These are totalitarian thugs. This is Obama's 4th term. This is the hammer and sickle. They're playing for keeps now. Now, this is not Jeff Kuhner saying it. This is Elon Musk, a lifelong Democrat. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a lifelong liberal Democrat. Tulsi Gabbard, not just a lifelong liberal Democrat, at one time, one of the leading stars and lights of the Democratic Party. What you saw this morning is just the tip of the iceberg. They're going to take the show off the air. They're going to take the show off the internet. They're going to take the show off streaming. And they're going to come after other conservative talk radio hosts. This is no longer an election between 2 normal parties. This is now America or Venezuela. This is now communism or freedom. My friends, the question now you have to ask yourself, what side are you on? 8:50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. 617-266-6868 is the number. Sandra in Boston. Thanks for holding, Sandra, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. I lost you on the radio, but I found you on the phone.
Excellent. Excellent, Sandra.
And if you need a little extra courage, read Brooke Barbier's story about John Hancock. In 1774, they tried to shut him down, too.
Well, it didn't work then, and it won't work now, Sandra. Believe me.
Exactly.
Believe me.
Exactly. I was concerned about a couple of things. First of all, I don't think people have really looked hard enough at what sort of a convention she ran. She really laid her cards out by the people she invited to speak at that convention and the people she has hired. She tapped Eric Holder to find her, fast and furious, Eric Holder to find her vice president candidate. She had Hillary Clinton, Benghazi, Hillary Clinton, Benghazi, Leon Panetta. She had those people speaking at her convention. I mean, she has already told us all we need to know, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm concerned about the buying of votes on college campuses, and I hope somebody looks into that. Do you know anything about that?
Well, that's another problem. You're completely right. By the way, just before I get to that, look, this is what Kamala's people are openly saying. You're right. It was Holder who helped pick Tim Walz, who, Tiananmen Tim, the most far left-wing governor in the entire country. If it's possible, she's to the left of Bernie. Kamala is to the left of Bernie. You can look it up. Don't take my word for it. Their rankings in the Senate, she was more left-wing than Bernie Sanders, who's an avowed socialist and an admirer of the Soviet Union. She's more left-wing than Bernie. Walz is more left-wing than Kamala. And he's an open admirer of communist China. So Walz will be the VP. Eric Holder is tapped to be her chief of staff. So Holder's going to be the chief of staff under Kamala. They're talking Hillary as Secretary of State. They want to bring her back and have her basically be Secretary of State. We're guaranteed World War III. Guaranteed World War III if Hillary becomes Secretary of State. And Panetta, she wants him back to run the CIA. So you're going to have deep state operation after deep state operation, mass spying, mass surveillance. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know the expression, Sandra, personnel is policy. Every far left-wing, deep state, warmongering operative you can imagine. Everyone connected to the Tricoms or to our enemies is going to, or to the billionaires and the oligarchs and the globalists who run the Democratic Party and essentially now are trying to run the world. All of them with deep ties to the World Economic Forum. That's what's going to be running our country. She's just a puppet. As Vivek Ramaswamy put it, it's the system. The system is going to be running the country. The entire system. She's just the puppet of the deep state system and the globalist oligarch system. Now, as for buying votes, you're dead on. They're paying people to show up at Kamala's rallies. They're not doing this for free. So they're handing out $50 or $100 or whatever it is, loading them onto buses. A lot of them are students. And now another racket is they're paying students to vote for Kamala in the election. So you've got illegals voting. You've got non-citizens voting. You've got mail-in balloting and ballot harvesting where people are voting multiple times. And then you're going to have college students who many of them don't want to vote for Kamala because if you remember, she openly called them stupid. She said those between the ages of 18 and 24, her words, are stupid. And this has gone viral among college kids. That's why she's not doing well with young voters. That's why Trump is beating her with young voters. Well, how do you get her? How do you get these young people to vote? Start handing out cash. And that crook, Garland, will do nothing. The Attorney General, the Department of Justice will do nothing because they're in the tank for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So there's no question, Sandra. The steal is on. There's voter fraud taking place right now. That's why they're knocking me off the air. Because they don't want the American people to know this. The only question now is, can we prevent some of it from happening? Because there's going to be some that's going to happen. Okay, there's just too much fraud. But stop enough of it so that we win in November. That's the only question now. Free, fair election, Trump destroys Kamala. It's not even close. It's a landslide. So, can we swamp him at the polls? And I believe we will. I believe we will. So, and prevent enough of the fraud that on election night, Donald J. Trump is the winner. And when that happens, Sandra, this is going to be the greatest political comeback, not just in American history, in the history of the world. And it will be a miracle. It will be a real life miracle. And this audience, you, Kuhner Country, all of us, will have been the tip of the spear to help bring about this miracle. And so we've got 60 days left. It's pedal to the metal. We have one goal, and that's to win in November. There is no second place, and there will be no second chance. If not us, who? If not now, when? Final word to you, Sandra.
The taxing of unrealized capital gains, people won't immediately understand what that means, but it's property confiscation, and people need to understand that. So we have to really make very clear to the low information voters exactly what's going on, particularly seniors. They won't understand that, but if you're taxing unrealized capital gains, it's the doorway to property confiscation. It really is.
You're dead on. You're absolutely dead on. And Sandra, let me go even further. This tax on 25% tax on unrealized capital gains, and I'm not the only one that's saying this. Nobel Prize winning economists, conservatives, liberals, centrists across the political spectrum, they say this and price controls on food are the two most destructive, frankly, insane policy proposals they've ever heard. But let's just stick to tax on unrealized capital gains. It is going to wipe out entire companies and corporations. Say a corporation is worth, just humor me, okay? $50 million or $100 million. And their stock goes up. Suddenly it goes up, say, another 100 million. Boom. They're going to have to pay a massive 25% tax. But they haven't sold anything. It's just paper. It was valued at 100. Now it's valued at 200 million. Well, you owe us $25 million. I'd like, well, we can't pay that. Well, you're going under. Too bad. Company after company after company is going to go under because of this. People are going to get laid off. That's why Trump is warning everybody. He goes, I'm telling you, if Kamala Harris wins, we're going to have a Great Depression. You can't survive this kind of economic idiocy. You can't. Now, my fear, to be honest with you, is not just for the country, for you, for the American people, for me, but talk radio. Talk radio is going to get wiped out. Cumulus, iHeart, obviously, iHeart is the biggest, but Cumulus, all the others, okay, Beasley, all these other big, radio companies, they can't survive a tax on unrealized capital gains. Are you kidding me? It's going to wipe out talk radio completely. Everybody's going to be out on the street. I'm not just talking Jeff Kuhner because they want to censor the Kuhner man. I'm talking sales executives, administration people, janitors, managers. That's why, to me, if you care about having a job, if you care about feeding your family, again, I'm not asking you to vote for patriotism. I'm serious. Don't vote for the First Amendment. Don't vote for the Second Amendment. Don't vote for the Constitution. Don't vote to protect our border and stop this invasion. I don't want you to vote for patriotic reasons. Well, of course I do, but no, forget that. Just vote your self-interest. Hell, vote your self-preservation. That's all I'm asking you to do. That's it. Vote your pocketbook. That's all I'm asking. 617-266-6868. David in Boston. Thanks for holding, David, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
Hi, David.
Hey,
I'd like to talk about two states, and I'd like to talk about two Volodymyrs. The two states I'd like to talk about is the Deep State Department, and the second state I'd like to talk about is the state of New Hampshire. Now, and then the Volodymyrs, there's two Volodymyrs. If I was to say to you, Volodymyr the Ukrainian, who would you think of? Who would be the first Volodymyr the Ukrainian?
Well, I'm thinking Zelensky, obviously.
Right. Well, there's another important Volodymyr, Zhukovsky, okay? Now, he was exonerated of all charges, vindicated, exonerated of all charges. He was declared he was as pure as a late summer snowfall on the summit of Mount Washington, up in the presidential range of New Hampshire. But let me tell you something, Jeff. I've been trying to get this call out for the last year. I went into your rallies looking for Manny Ribeiro. Hey, listen, the fix was put in by the deep state on that trial because they had just recently, the previous May, had installed Volodymyr Zelensky, and they were planning these $100 billion aid packages to Volodymyr the Ukrainian. So they couldn't find Volodymyr Zhukovsky guilty. The fix was put in by the Deep State Department on that prosecution because it would have thrown a monkey wrench into the $100 billion aid packages to Volodymyr the Ukrainian.
You're a genius. David, I'm telling you, you're a genius. Look, he is the key oligarch. Okay, he's the owner of Burisma. And that's why Hunter Biden got his, millions and millions and millions and was put on retainer. So he's the key guy. He's the key oligarch behind Zelensky. He's the key oligarch that owns Burisma. He's the key oligarch tied to the entire Biden crime family. And that's why Biden made sure that this guy never went to jail. And that's why he used that $1 billion aid package as blackmail. And as the idiot bragged in front of a room full of people at the Foreign Relations Council or Foreign Relations Committee, saying, hey, son of a bee, I told him, you don't fire that prosecutor, you're not getting that money. Well, son of a bee, 2 hours later, he was gone, and they're all laughing. So what we're watching in front of our eyes, and this is what globalism means in a nutshell, is you have oligarchs around the world teaming up or partnering with oligarchs here in the United States. And these are very powerful, wealthy billionaires, all tied to the World Economic Forum. And they are now creating a globalist new world order in front of our eyes. And if you look at the Democratic Party in particular, but the Republican establishment is no better. It is of the oligarchs, by the oligarchs, for the oligarchs. And this is what Trump is trying to warn the country about. That's why he's been saying Biden is a puppet. Kamala is a puppet. Nikki Haley is a puppet. Mitt Romney, McConnell, they're puppets. They're puppets of these oligarchs. And it is the oligarchs who control the media. It is the oligarchs who control popular culture. It is the oligarchs that are controlling the swamp in Washington. And they don't want Trump to win because he is the only one who threatens their grip on power. And that is literally what this election is all about. And the problem now that the oligarchs have, and that's why they're in a full panic, is they have a horrible candidate in Kamala Harris. They just can't sell Comrade Kamala. They just can't. Because to be a successful politician, you have to be a good liar. The better liar you are, the more successful of a politician you will be. And she's a horrible liar. She gets caught in lie after lie. She gets caught in flip-flops. She can't pivot from lie to lie. In fact, I want to play this cut. David, thank you very much for that call. To show you what a bad liar she is. Okay, I want you to hear this. This is another lie that's been thoroughly exposed. Remember the one about that she worked at McDonald's And that's the centerpiece of her biography, and it turns out she never worked at McDonald's? Okay? Listen now to this lie. This is unbelievable. This is Kamala Harris. Now, I want you to remember, she's talking about her grandmother in India. So we're talking, 60, 80 years ago? Today, India is one of the most traditional countries in the world. Never mind 60, 80 years ago. And I'm not talking urban India. I'm talking her grandmother was in rural India. So it's traditional of traditional of traditional. Abortion was so banned in India, it's like Saudi Arabia, okay, when it comes to stuff like this. Listen to what she claims her grandmother did. I'm telling you, you're going to burst out laughing. This is so preposterous. Roll cut 12, Mike.
I come from a long line of tough, trailblazing, and phenomenal women. My grandmother would go into villages in India, and because she was Indian and lived in India, and she would go to the villages in India. It was a famous story in our family. My grandfather would say she was going to be the end of his career. But my grandmother would go into the villages with a bullhorn, talking with the women about the need to have access to reproductive health care. She was an extraordinary woman.
Now, even in the room, nobody believed her. Okay, she's talking to fellow moonbats, fellow Democrats, fellow liberals. And they don't believe her. Because this so defies... That's like saying, look, India is predominantly a Hindu nation. In fact, Hindus and Muslims don't like each other. They have been historically at odds with each other. But when it comes to certain cultural traditions, okay, when it comes to, say, social conservatism, it's like saying Saudi Arabia. My grandmother in rural Saudi Arabia, 60, 80 years ago, in the villages, was going around with a bullhorn saying we got to have abortion. How you'd be laughing. I mean, what? On what planet are you living on? Bull crap. BS. BS. You know what I really want to say, okay? I can't say it. Horse crap. Now, guess what? That's also now been debunked. People said, no, her grandmother never walked around with a bullhorn, ever. Never mind going village to village saying, yeah, we got to have abortion. But this is such a stupid lie. It's so easy to catch a lie like this. That's what I mean. You can't sell her. You can't. This is unsellable. Nobody's that stupid, but she is that stupid. Now, on top of this I've never heard of as well, just very quickly. I don't know if you heard this. Okay, this, and then I want to go back to the phone lines. Tiananmen Tim, Tampon Tim Waltz, okay, or as many of you are calling him, Tim Paintball Waltz. Paintball. Is such a communist, is such a Maoist, is such a disaster, an authoritarian disaster as the governor of Minnesota. Not only is his own brother coming out and saying, whatever you do, don't vote for my brother. He's loony, he's nutty as a fruitcake. His entire family, the whole family in Nebraska has now come out. They've got T-shirts. They took a picture. Waltzes for Trump. The whole family is saying he's cuckoo. He's a left-wing kook. He's nuts. This guy admires Mao Zedong. Who the hell admires Mao Zedong? Tim Waltz admires Mao Zedong. You can't make this up. His own family is telling the country, I'm begging you. You don't know how crazy Tim Waltz is. We know him. He's our brother. He's our family member. He's blood. Don't vote for this guy. Okay? This is a guy who admires Marxist communist dictators who starved people, millions of people to death. And they're pushing price controls on food. Hello, connect the dots. Paula in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Paula. and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you? What a beautiful day it is in New Hampshire. I just want to remind everybody that on Tuesday we have our primary here. And I'm supporting Chuck Moss because I feel he is the man to keep New Hampshire straight on and where we need to be. He is a Trump supporter. He has come out and endorsed Trump. I just want to tell a little story about Kelly Ayotte, and I know both of them. Back in 2016, Jeff, you and I were right there with Trump. You and I were on the stage together. Kelly at the end came out and took away her endorsement of Trump because of things that happened. I spoke to a family member who begged me to make sure the Trump supporters endorsed Kelly because she would lose.
Paula, I know exactly where you're going with this. It is a very revealing story. I'm up against a break. Mike, are you secretly working for the CIA or something? It's like every time you're screwing me with these breaks, Mike. All right, I'm going to be back with Paula. More next. 9:19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Paula was with me in 2016, if you remember. We had that historic rally for Trump. He lost to Ted Cruz in the Iowa caucuses. He needed to win New Hampshire to rebound. We held a huge rally for him in Manchester, even though it was a blizzard outside, ice. I mean, it was ice everywhere, freezing rain. The arena was packed. And Kelly Ayotte withdrew her support from Trump because she's a rhino. That's what rhinos do. Paula didn't. Of course, the Kuhner man was there telling everybody Trump was going to win a huge victory in New Hampshire and going on about how we need an America First movement to restore our country. But this is about Kelly Ayotte and the kind of weasel that she is. Paula, please, you were there with me. Kelly Ayotte says she's pulling out her support for Trump, but she still wants Trump supporters to back her. Then she was running for U.S. Senate. Please pick up where we left off, Paula.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate this. You know, when Kelly is now talking about that she will stand behind John Sununu's policies, well, I call John Sununu, this governor, non-essential for what he did to New Hampshire. What is she going to do? God forbid we had another scamdemic. Is she going to shut down this state like the governor did and cause businesses to go under and ruin children's lives? The governor took our Nashua South High School and turned it into a makeshift hospital, which we never used. So we had many children's lives ruined, and I sat on the board and was discriminated against on that board over a mask. And what do we want? We want strong policies in New Hampshire. Chuck Moss has delivered to the people in this state, and this is what we need to continue. Remember, Kelly Ayotte is talking about closing the borders at the north point of New Hampshire, but she was with Chuck Schumer, John McCain, the Gang of Eight, and wanted that path to citizenship for illegals. We can't have that. You talked about the illegals here. They want to vote. They want to keep them voting. Well, we want them out of the country, and we need a governor who's going to stand behind President Trump with the illegals and a lot of his policies, because the policies that President Trump is going to bring back to this country, it's going to be the same policies that's going to keep New Hampshire and flourishing, because they are complaining that New Hampshire is an old state. Well, us senior citizens, I'm going to be 71. Where are we going? My husband and I thought we were leaving last year, but where are we going to go? We can sell here, but where are we going? So if you want to bring prosperity into the state, you have to make it a workable state. You have to make it a vibrant state that the seniors can afford to live here, and we're going to bring in people with children, because the children population, our student population, is dropping very quickly. I don't believe that Kelly Ayotte can do this. I believe Chuck Moss can do this because he has been in the Senate. He has done a lot. He's kept taxes out of the state. He's brought down the inheritance tax. I mean, we've seen growth with Chuck. We've seen nothing with Kelly. She has not been here. And so I'm urging people in
primary, please cast your vote for Chuck Moss. I think he is the best candidate, and he will bring New Hampshire where we need to be, and he will bring the Trump policies into the state.
Paula, thank you very, very much for that call. I really, really appreciate it. Mr. Garcia in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Mr. Garcia, and welcome.
Hello, Mr. Kuhner. Long time no speak. How you going?
Very good. It's so nice to hear from you, Mr. Garcia. Tell me, what do you make of Kamala Harris? What do you make now of her claiming that that she's going to win New Hampshire and that Trump is already abandoned the state and he's going to give up? He's not going to fight or contest New Hampshire. Do you believe it?
No. Listen, I want to ask you a great question. Trump, when he debate her on Tuesday, maybe wait 1 hour. He punching her out, knocking her out. Donald Trump to say, listen, we should debate, second debate. Me and you, a second debate. And I bet you she going to say, what? She going to say no. And I believe Donald Trump should request the second debate. I want to know when is going to be the next debate for the VIP, the vice president. I never heard.
Yeah, there's going to be, Mr. Garcia, I think you're making an excellent point. A really, really excellent point. And if Trump's people are listening, and I know that they do, he's got to have that ace up his sleeve. He doesn't have to drop it immediately. He can wait, as you said, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. It's going to be a 90-minute debate on Tuesday. But he's got to come out and say, she's afraid to debate me. All she's agreed to is one debate. So, Kamala, I'm challenging you right here, right now, on national television in front of the entire country and the entire world. Will you, I dare you, will you agree right now to a second debate? I think the country deserves more than just one debate. They need to know where you stand on the issues, where I stand on the issues, and on all the major policy questions that are going to impact, all 340 million Americans. And she's going to panic because she doesn't want another debate. She wants one and done, period. Because she's not smart. She's just not. And she's rehearsing now. She's practicing now for this debate. You can give her the answers ahead of time. You can give her the questions ahead of time. You can do everything in your power. The woman just isn't smart, period. And she's afraid to debate Trump. And on Tuesday, you're going to see why. Thank you very much, Mr. Garcia. Now, as for the vice presidential debate, my understanding is they've agreed to one. And I believe, Sandy, if you can fact check this for me, I believe it's October 1st. Okay, don't quote me on this. I know they've agreed to one. They are going to do one. And I believe it's on October 1st. But we're going to fact check that. But there will be a VP debate. No question about it. And look, there should be at least 3 presidential debates. Just having one, to me, is ridiculous. Okay, it's pathetic. But at a bare minimum, come on, Kamala. You can do 2. At least 2. 9:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, censored, suppressed, but unbowed. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so this is from Eric on Messenger about Kamala Harris. Comrade Kamala, or Commie Harris, as I like to call her now. Jeff, Kamala is so far left. I believe that she is the ringleader of the squad in secret. Once she gets in office, the squad gets in office. And watch the appointments given to squad members, especially the ones that just got voted out. They're all going to come back. I agree. Eric, if your mother didn't tell you, I'm telling you, you're a genius. Okay? You're dead on. You watch Jamal Bowman. He's going to take very good care of Jamal. AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib. I think she's going to make Rashida Tlaib special envoy to the Middle East. That's what she's going to do. Elon, some people did something, Omar. They're all going to get either plum positions or they're going to have special access to the Harris-Waltz regime. In other words, this is going to be the squad running the government and running the country. Now, if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what will. Now, very quickly, because this is a huge story, I believe it had an impact on the show today. I believe it's why we were censored for 2 hours, but that's me. Listen now to Ken Dilanian on NBC announcing Biden, Merrick Garland, and Christopher Wray talking about Russian election interference and what they're going to do now to stop all of this misinformation and disinformation that they claim now is all over the media. People like me, people like Tucker, many conservative bloggers, they're going to purge us. You don't believe me? Here it is. Roll cut 18. Mike.
This is being described by our sources as a whole of government action designed to target Russian propaganda and disinformation aimed at interfering in the 2024 election. It is said to include sanctions by the Treasury Department, law enforcement action by the Justice Department, and one of the focuses is on RT, formerly known as Russia Today, that network of Russian government-funded English language websites and television platforms that was flagged all the way back in 2017 by the U.S. intelligence community as a vehicle for Russian disinformation and election interference. And at that time, the Justice Department required RT to register as a foreign agent. It remains to be seen exactly what actions the U.S. will take against RT today, but this does appear to represent an escalation in the efforts to try to purge the system of Russian propaganda and disinformation.
There you go. Purge the system of Russian propaganda and disinformation. They've already cracked down on 4 prominent conservative commentators and bloggers. That broke last night. And apparently now, Tucker Carlson, he peddles Russian propaganda and disinformation. I peddle, according to them, Russian propaganda and disinformation. I could go on and on. They're going to go after the American Conservative, which I think is one of the best magazines in the country, because they're very skeptical of the war in Ukraine. Mark my words. That's Russian propaganda and disinformation. Mark Levin, mark my words. He's Russian propaganda and disinformation. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his podcast, that's Russian propaganda and disinformation. Tulsi Gabbard, that's Russian propaganda and disinformation. That podcast, they're going to shut that baby down. To me now, it's only a matter of time. So the regime is tightening its grip because they know they're going to lose in November and they have to crush dissent at all cost. Now, very quickly, I told you about Elon Musk and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. going out on social media on X and saying Kamala Harris wants to appoint a government regulatory board to oversee Twitter and X, in fact, all social media, and make sure they conform to the government narrative. That if there's not strict oversight and overview and regulation of X, then they're going to shut it down. In other words, censor or we just shut you down. Take, door 1 or door 2. Listen now to Professor Jonathan Turley, George Washington University, one of the most prominent and I think courageous free speech First Amendment activists in the country. He is warning now about the Biden regime, this so-called Russian election interference hoax, and of course, what Kamala Harris intends to do should she win in November. Roll cut 19, Mike.
It's really Brazil that I think many in the anti-free speech movement are watching carefully. If Brazil can succeed in banning Twitter from the entire country, it will be replicated. Because many hold the view of what you just heard from Vice President Harris. They view speech as a privilege. It's like a driver's license that they think that can be rescinded if you're reckless. And this is the ultimate destination for this movement, where if they can't convince people to give up their own freedoms, to embrace censorship, they're going to start to take sites offline to prevent people from hearing opposing views.
Bingo. Bingo. That's why if you love free speech and you love the Constitution and you love the First Amendment, if you love freedom, you have no choice. You have to vote for Trump in November. Dan in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
Nurse Dan for Congress.
Hi, Dan.
Jeff, if you want to understand the left, I think what we're seeing is a collective psychosis. The hallmark signs being rage and fear. And one of the triggers of a psychotic episode is delusion. Jeff, I work as a registered nurse in one of the state's forensic psychiatric hospitals, so I have an understanding of mental illness. And the greatest delusion in our political history was that Joe Biden was of sound mind and body to be president. And what you're seeing on the left is that their altered mental status has eclipsed their sense of reality. And I got to tell you something, Jeff. Over the last 3.5 years, the most joyful people I encounter are people on the right. The most miserable people I encounter are on the left. It should be the opposite, but it isn't. And so we have to understand that we're not dealing with reasonable, rational people. We're really dealing with people that are psychotic. And I think if we really want to understand where they're coming from, I think if we accept that they're psychotic, we might be able to connect with them more. During the DNC, Jeff, I had we call them person served, watching the DNC. These are people with serious psychiatric diagnoses. And they were saying that the Democrats at the DNC were crazy. So if the crazy people are saying the DNC is crazy, then they must really be crazy. And that's what we're seeing, Jeff. And that's why...
Well, Dan, look, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, I want to play it one more time. And the only reason why is because I believe we were censored for 2 hours. So many people listening on the dial didn't hear this. Okay, on streaming, you did. Or HD Radio 2, 100.7, you did. Or on the app, you did. But if you were listening on the dial, obviously you got static, you didn't hear this. So just to prove your point about psychosis and how liberals live in an altered state of reality. This is in Newton. It is a video that has now gone viral. It is an unhinged leftist wearing a mask, a COVID disposable mask. He's a young man, 25 years old, with a beard, crazy eyes, spots a Trump supporter. In her car, she has a Trump sticker. He starts yelling, screaming, swearing, insisting that she's a Nazi. And he puts his middle finger right in her face in the car. Roll cut 20, Mike.
We did nothing to you.
You support fascism.
No, I don't.
Donald John Trump is a fascist.
Okay, you're entitled to your opinion. You are. I'm not disagreeing that you're
I'm
entitled to your
entitled to
opinion.
flip you off, you fascist. Leave Boston.
Okay.
Off, Nazi.
Okay, thank you.
You vote for Trump, you're a F off Nazi, you're Hitler, get the F out of Boston. Dan, is that guy psychotic?
Psychotic break. He's clearly unhinged. Now, registered nurses, we don't make...
Dan, please hang on. I'm going to come right back to you. And let me throw it out there for all of you. Do you think that guy is a whack job? Is he psychotic? I say yes. 950 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. We're going to go right back to Dan in Plymouth, but a very disturbing incident in Newton, which for those of you listening on the app or streaming around the country, is a suburb, actually a fairly wealthy suburb of Boston, in which an Antifa leftist or a BLM leftist, clearly a Harris supporter, threatened to assault and beat up a Trump supporter. She was in her car, minding her own business, simply because she had a Trump sticker. And he called her a Nazi. He called her a fascist. He said that she has to get the F out of Boston and to never show her face again. And she had to de-escalate the situation. If she had not de-escalated the situation, I'm convinced that animal, that left-wing terrorist, and that's what now many Democrats have become, there's no question, political thugs, would have pulled her out of that car and beaten her to a pulp, if not outright killed her. And this is not a lone incident. This is happening not just in Massachusetts, not just in New Hampshire. It's happening all over the country. And Dan in Plymouth, who's a nurse, says what you're seeing among many on the left is that they are psychotic. It's a mental disorder, a genuine mental disorder, a complete detachment from reality, and this hatred for the other side that is bordering now on the pathological. Dan, so you believe this radical leftist in Newton is psychotic and is proof exactly of what you're saying, correct? Hello, Dan? Did we lose Dan? Okay. Harry, Dan, if you can call back again, I'd love to get you on. But I agree with you. I think it's clearly a psychosis, and I think it's getting worse. And I blame the media and Biden and Harris for feeding this psychosis. You keep lying to people and telling them that Trump and his supporters are Hitler, Nazis, and fascists. Well, what do you think is going to happen? Harry in Chelmsford. Thanks for holding, Harry, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Glad to get through to you finally.
Go ahead, Harry.
Yeah, it's a problem with, out of control rage and anger, and, unfortunately we're humans and that's what happens, but I suggest people start carrying around that burner gun there, the one that shoots the paintballs with the pepper spray, and protect yourself, Don't put up with bullies. They want to start something, give them a shot of that. It'll stop them right in their tracks. Anyway, Kamala Harris has got to, if she gets in office, God help us if she don't, price gouging, price gauging is not going to work. We all know that. The only thing she has to do is let a little oil flow. Stop this tar crap from Venezuela. And this is for Trump, too. I know he's listening. I hope you get in, Mr. Trump. I love you. And get a little oil going in this country. Everything else will straighten itself right out. As soon as we get the oil in, and as soon as we get our transportation down, the cost of transportation to get everything we need transferred from point A to point B, that's where all this came from. That one issue. And I know he knows that. And she's got her head up her butt. She's got no business being in such a high position. No business.
Oh, it's frightening. I agree with you, Harry. It's frightening that someone, right now is a heartbeat away from the presidency, but in November could actually, become president. It is truly chilling. Someone that economically illiterate. It is, it's mind-boggling. There's just no other way to describe this. And you're completely right. Everything flows from energy. Everything. You drive the price of gas and natural gas and oil down, it drives everything else down. And that's what Trump vows to do on day one. And mark my words, he will have inflation under control in less than 6 months. Thank you for that call, Harry. Al in Burlington. Thanks for holding, Al, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. I called you about a month ago. I'm the 100% disabled Vietnam veteran. I went to Normandy. I spent about a month in Europe, in Ireland, France, and Italy. And I just come back from Greece and Turkey. And I have to tell you what people think of us. I was in a tour that had a large contingent of African Americans. And let me tell you right now, all the guys are voting for Trump. All the guys that have jobs, that worry about their jobs, they're not telling their wives, but they're voting for Trump. And all the women who are pretty well off, that don't have to struggle, they're just going to vote for Kamala because she's black and that's it. Now, the women that are struggling, they don't want to tell you they're going to vote for Trump. What scares me, listening to people around the world that I spent 6 weeks over in Europe, they think that they're going to steal the election again. They're going to steal the election again. I spoke to a retired Saudi Arabian general, right? Retired. And he wants Trump because they're afraid of Iran. And I said to him, well, if you're so afraid of Iran, you know, we trained your pilots back in the day.
Al, I'm up against it. I gotta. Al, please try to call again. I want you to finish what you were trying to say. And thank you for your service, Al. God bless you. No, the Europeans know only way a lunatic, a left-wing lunatic like Kamala Harris can win is if they steal it. That's why we have to block the steal. Bye-bye.